think still images still occupy a place of ultimate importance in our common language and our common understanding of the world we live in.
My name is Stefani Reynolds, and I'm a photographer based in Washington, D.C.
My name is Victor Blue. I'm a photographer, and I was inside the U.S. Capitol on January 6th.
My assignment on January 6th was to cover the Electoral College vote count inside the House chamber.
My assignment on January 6th was to cover the large Stop the Steal rally organized by former President Donald Trump. I've covered demonstrations and protests in this country and others for, many, many years. I'd never seen that level of not just vitriol, but that level of violence directed at law enforcement officers before, and I knew it was beginning to get dangerous.
After the first set of lawmakers objected to the election results, we left the House chamber to file photos when we heard that protesters had started climbing the inauguration stands outside. I grabbed my cameras and left the gallery to see if I could make any photos from inside the Capitol. There was a large group of protesters right at the doors, pushing against Capitol Police, and we started making photos through the windows.
And it was, the level of chaos was just unbelievable. It was hard to figure out what was going on and what wasn't. At one point, I got a message from a reporting thread that said there were breaches on the east side, on the far side of the Capitol. And so I and a couple of colleagues of mine gathered ourselves and raced over there. We entered the Columbus doors, the very, very front doors up the stairs on the east side of Congress with the protesters who had bashed them open, assaulted the police who were guarding them, and pushed their way through. We were caught up, swept up in the crowd, and shoved directly into right under the rotunda of Congress.
We weren't aware that people had gotten into the building until we heard them pounding on the doors to the House chamber. Guards were barricading the doors, and I kept my lens glued to them while trying to scan the crowd to see how lawmakers were reacting.
Capitol Police had actually run out of chemical irritants, pepper spray, mace, and so at some point they were spraying fire extinguishers, just white powder fire extinguishers out the doors to try to keep the crowd at bay, which was not having any real effect. And a protester kind of stood on the stairs above the crowd. He was wearing a suit and a face mask, and he kind of spread his arms out almost in a cross and a kind of triumphant gesture, wide, and looked out over the crowd, clearly satisfied and excited by what they had managed to accomplish. And so I made the picture, and it seemed to resonate a lot with readers, and it was published pretty widely.
A lot was going through my mind when I took this photo. Guards were moving everyone in the House chamber to one side of the balcony and telling them to get underneath the seats. As we were being moved, I turned and saw the guards at the door with their guns drawn, and I knew that I needed to plant my feet, take a breath, and get the picture.
I think the pictures that we made on January 6th are vitally important. They're vitally important as evidence of the history we've just gone through, of the culminating act of the 4 years of the Trump presidency. I became a photojournalist in order to communicate the events of our times to people who couldn't be there, to help us understand the forces both inside and outside our control, and to help people understand each other better than they could otherwise.
I think everyone's work was an important component to telling the full story of what went on that day. It was nearly impossible to be everywhere on your own. If you were in the House chamber, you were stuck there, and if you were outside, you weren't getting in. So having teammates who were in different spots with different perspectives was incredibly important to conveying the full story of what happened.